Well, good evening, and it's Saturday evening. I'm in Crestline, California. I'm safe and sound, but a lot of things going on these days, especially political intrigue. And I've written a few articles myself. Plus, I used to be a senior instructor back at Fort Bragg at the JFK uh, Special Warfare Center. And but that's all in the past, and we have a lot of young authors nowadays. And I sort of drift between trying to make secular sense about what's going on and about the uh, biblical aspects of what we think is occurring. Uh, and the idea is that it doesn't do you much good to get panicky. Uh, but I have come across a few authors that like to work out these scenarios between what's going on in the Ukraine, what's going on in Russia, China, Southeast Asia, India, and the amount of technology that's been advanced, AI, and everybody seems to be working on that. And if you know anything about the subconscious propaganda, what mass media is doing to us, uh, and there's no real way for the average person to ward it off because basically you're a product of it. I was a product of it to a certain extent with my animal characteristics. Not like a chicken. You can take a chicken and put him on a chalk line and he stays there. Or an alligator, you can pat him on the back. So there's certain ways that you can hypnotize chickens. And I've said before, actually, mankind was created on the sixth day. If you'll go back in the book of Genesis, chapter 1, and it was sort of like an afterthought. He said, oh, well, let us make man in our image and in our likeness, and let us give him or them, because he created them male and female, just like everything else. Apparently, there's male and there's female, and they duplicate after their kind, unless somebody has started to fool around with the DNA. I forget, they've got a name for it, starts with a C. But we're basically we're trapped in a way in our bodies. Very few of us could had any control over uh, when or where or by whom we were born. There wasn't much you could do about it. But afterwards, of course, you meet certain problems and prejudices. And on the other hand, you've gotten certain benefits. It's part of being this human existence. But what we're up against today, right now, is what's happening with the Russians and the Chinese and the Indians. All of these people seem to be rushing forward with technology. So I'm interested in a lot of these books, audio books. I can drive and sit, I can get a whole education, and I can be affected by what they're saying. It seems like a lot of military types, if you had anything to do with special, then you've gotten out. Luckily, you've still got your eyesight or your earlobes or something like that. Anyway, a lot of guys don't. You've been wounded, and this has an effect. But if you survived, if you killed them before they killed you, and that's what's coming back to America now. got out of Afghanistan. We got out of Iraq, I think. Uh, but now, and it seems to be a conspiracy, we are in the Ukraine. Uh, I don't. I didn't choose to be there. Uh, I've known Ukrainians. As a matter of fact, I may have mentioned this once before. I didn't know the hatred between the Soviets or the Russians and the Ukrainians. Uh, when I was in special operations, A teams, we didn't like to talk about it, but you couldn't put a Russian or a Ukrainian on the same A team. No, no. It didn't happen, and it couldn't happen. So there's a lot of people that are just, it's culture, it's background, it's in their DNA, if you want to put it that way. No, they don't get along. But anyway, recently I've come across an author. He writes a lot of books about his experiences as a SEAL team. Now, I took training with the SEAL team, SEAL Team 1, Delta Platoon, and I've also been in Special Forces in my day for about 11 to 17 years, and I worked with Blackwater, so I was a contractor also. But anyway, got a lot of SEALs. They're all writing about their training and their adventure, and I'm not sure if any. I don't know if these guys ever had a psychological evaluation or not. I don't think so. I don't remember Special Forces receiving a psychological evaluation. When to make application to a police department or law enforcement in the old days, yeah, they'd give you the Rorschach. You'd see a butterfly, or you'd see a bat, or something like that. But I've come across an author, and then this guy was bad enough technologically. They can give you any feet per minute for any kind of weapon, the explosive, the poundage, and that really makes it brings the old dudes up to snuff. Then just recently I've come across another author, two authors that work together. They've come across about six books, a series of what could have happened, the scenario. And one of their scenarios is, in their first book, they get into the American and NATO involvement in Ukraine, but they sort of turn it around. It's the Russians that had air superiority. The Russians that were technically ahead. They weren't the dumb bears that we think they are. And anyway, in that book, the Russians gave the U.S. and the NATO a bloody nose. And it was planned because the next book you're starting to deal with the Chinese. And the Chinese expectations of controlling Asia, Southeast Asia, and the Russians will say, fine, we want ours, and you can have yours, and let's all work together in that regard, because we're just going to we're going to max out the United States. And in the first book, they actually sink one of the carriers, and they did a hell of a lot of damage to the Americans when they tried to come into the Black Sea. They lost a few here, they lost a few there, and then the second book takes up with the old book with the Chinese. In that scenario, they go ahead and take out Mongolia. And the guy that wrote this book has been an analyst. He's been in Afghanistan, Iraq. He's been doing this for about 17, 18 years, and the guy is very good. I was an intel sergeant, uh, and I took a lot of training, and I actually went to the school. A lot of special forces types. When you get down to have a couple of drinks, did you actually go to the course? Or was it OJT? On the job training. A lot of it, they didn't know what the hell an intelligence sergeant was supposed to do. I hate to admit that, but like I say, I haven't met another special forces sergeant that actually went to the old intelligence course. A 2 month long course, an actual course. Be that as it may, it makes it that I can appreciate these guys writing these books and coming up with these scenarios because we have a problem nowadays with the administration that we have now, that we know that these people are useful idiots. They're being used. In this scenario that I've just gotten through with, that the president, he finally has to recognize that a lot of generals and Congress, he has to go out and arrest these guys, because it finally comes to mind that they've been turning out, they've been taking money from the Chinese, and the Chinese are starting to move on Vietnam. So anyway, what I want to let you listen to, and I want you to see if we could ever have a president that would have to say what this scenario, he has to go to the American public and say that, look, I've had to fire most of the generals, because they just weren't cutting. We're losing in this scenario. Now, it goes on for 4 more books after the one I'm listening to, and I don't know, but anyway, I think you'll find this interesting.
My fellow Americans, I come to you today with a heavy heart and a message of hope. During the last several weeks, America and our allies in NATO were savagely attacked by the Russian Federation while defending the freedom-loving people of Ukraine. During the lead-up to that dastardly attack, it was discovered that a number of high-ranking government officials and even members of Congress were leaking classified intelligence to the media and our enemies, with the express intent of hurting this administration and undermining the national security of our great nation for selfish political purposes. I understand that many of you did not vote for me and disagree with my policies. We can agree to disagree on issues. That's what democracy is all about. Our country, however, is at war. A war that was not of our choosing, but was thrust upon us. A war that we did not start, but will finish. He paused for a minute, looking down and then back at the camera. Let's set the record straight. There is no argument over what would be the desirable choice between peace and war. But there is only one guaranteed way you can have instantaneous peace: surrender. Admittedly, there is a risk in any other course we would follow, but every lesson in history tells us that the greater risk lies in appeasement. If we continue to accommodate, continue to retreat, then eventually we have to face the final demand, the ultimatum. And what then? The president again paused, giving the audience time to think before continuing. Petrov and Xi have undoubtedly told their people that they know what our answer will be. They are likely having conversations in smoke-filled rooms right now, saying that we are retreating under the pressure of this war, and that one day, when the final ultimatum is delivered, our surrender will be voluntary because we no longer have the stomach to fight on. They believe this because of the many voices they have heard in our media, pleading for peace at any price. Protesters are out in the streets saying, "Better red than dead." However, those voices don't speak for the rest of us. You and I don't believe that peace is so sweet as to be purchased at the price of our own slavery. Should Moses have told the children of Israel to continue to live under the oppression of the Pharaohs? Should Christ have refused the cross? Should the patriots at Concord Bridge have thrown down their guns and refused to fire the shot heard around the world? The martyrs of history were not fools. And our honored dead who gave their lives to stop the advance of the Nazis didn't die in vain. Like these heroes before us, we must find the courage deep within our souls and stand up to our enemies. They must know that there are lines we are not willing to cross. There is a point beyond which they must not advance. Winston Churchill said that the destiny of man is not measured by material computation, and that when great forces are on the move in the world, we learn we are spirits, not animals. He told us that there is something going on in time and space, and beyond time and space, which, whether we like it or not, spells duty. You and I have a rendezvous with destiny. We will preserve for our children this, the last best hope of man on earth, or we will sentence them to take the last step into 1,000 years of darkness. Today, I am officially announcing the rebuilding of our armed forces and a retooling of our economy to provide the tools of war necessary to win. During a midnight session of both the Congress and the Senate, a nearly unanimous vote was held to reinstate the draft. I have that bill before me now, and I stand ready to sign it to initiate the draft, which will begin today at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Despite the tens of thousands of young men and women who have volunteered to join the armed forces this past week, the military ranks need to grow immensely if we are to defeat the Russians and ensure the Chinese do not threaten our allies in the Pacific. It is for that reason that I am directing the Selective Service Board to draft 5 million men and women to serve in our armed forces during our country's greatest hour of need. Unlike the drafts of the past, women who have continued to serve in more and more combat roles in the military and served with distinction in Iraq and Afghanistan will also be required to enroll in the Selective Service, effective immediately, just as all men reaching the age of 18 are required by law. The first draft, which will be held today, will draft the first 1 million men. Women under the age of 26 will have 1 month to register for the draft. There is no criteria or quota for the number of women who can or will be drafted. They will be selected based on their birthday and year, just as the men are. The Selective Service will hold a draft on the first Saturday of each month, drafting 1 million young men and women into the military. That number may be reduced depending on the number of volunteers who willingly join the service prior to each draft date. He paused for a second, feeling the weight of what he had just announced. It pains me to have to be the first president since the Vietnam War to have to institute a draft for military service. But make no mistake, the world is at a turning point. The democracies of the world will either rise to the challenge of our age and defeat these autocratic dictatorships that threaten our survival, or we will collectively fail, falling prey to these violent regimes that threaten our values, freedoms, and very way of life. We are not Republicans or Democrats. We are Americans. We must unite as one people under the cause of freedom, defend our country, and fight for the allies who are depending upon us. I ask for your prayers and the Lord's guidance to help me make the right decisions and guide our nation through this perilous time. Thank you for your time today. God.
Now, do you think there'll ever become a time that when we'll have another administration with a president that will have the integrity, the guts to give a message to the American people like that? I don't know. I don't think it looks that good to the future. And for the rest of you that are living up in the Arkansas hills, chickens, pigs, and goats, the rest of us that are saving our candy bars and our, I don't know, Jack Daniels. For me, it's tequila. Look, there's an awful lot out there that you can either read or you can listen to. I always, they're not a sponsor of me, but Audible. Audible has, I don't know how many books on there that you can listen to, but you can go through some of these scenarios that it doesn't look that good for America. And I mean, we, with the kind of people we've got in office now, we're right on the cusp. You don't have to be a German rocket scientist. We Germans, I'm German, we make good rocket scientists. We make a lot. We like make a lot of good things. If you want to, America right now, are the best killing machine in the world, and we can kill almost anybody. But we as human beings also, we kill each other. We have bar fights, and anyway, I'm going to leave you with this, and I'm going to put it as a on a religious scale. I'm going to title this one the Bible, Russia, America, and China. What do you think? Anyway, I don't know if anybody's going to watch this, but I think the only way that we're really going to get out of this thing is it's going to take the Lord's return. Zechariah 4:14, on that day his foot shall stand on the Mount of Olives. And what happens after that? Well, keep reading. It splits. Most of us don't read on. We just read a little chapter here and there. Now, I'll talk to you next time. I hope you have a blessed summer. What's left of it. I don't think it's going to be a very good November. I'm in a safe place because I think God wants me where I'm at and doing what I'm trying to do. But you get real close to God, and the way you do that is that you seek out what His Son. Christ said that John was the last prophet, but I think that it's fully agreed upon that actually Christ was the last prophet for our age. And we're well into the atomic age. So think about it, pray about it as a matter of fact. And we'll talk to you next time.